Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. It is now Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. Time for the very first of our Hurricane Outlook and Discussion videos. We've had these going on for a number of years, often imitated but never duplicated. There's only one Hurricane Outlook and Discussion from HurricaneTrack, and that's me. That's us. That's our back-end team, our community, people like you watching on social media, primarily on YouTube. So I thank you. It's good to be here. We have a lot to talk about. This will be the title card, thumbnail, whatever that I use. Let me drop me out just for a second. Fairly simple. There doesn't need to be anything over the top. No arrows pointing to anything. Just a title, Hurricane Outlook and Discussion, and then some centered bullet points, if you will, or talking points, topics. So what are the topics for today's discussion? Well, the outlooks from the National Hurricane Center, those begin today. We'll take a look at how those record sea surface temperatures are doing and how they continue to signal a busy season ahead. And of course, the El Nino is going to be absent this year. That is as much of a guarantee as you could ask for in the world of weather and oceanography. And then, among other things that I'll tell you about, the new 2024 paper tracking maps are available, and you're going to definitely want to get your hands on one this year because they are going to probably be historic when it's all said and done. Lots of tracks to be filled out. And if you've never seen a paper tracking map, like, what's he talking about? I track it on my phone. That's all well and good, but when you see these things on a paper map, it is something else. All right? So a lot to talk about. Let's get to it. First of all, National Hurricane Center, the root of all of our information. We get all of our forecast info from here. I know most of these men and women that work down there. I have developed a relationship with them over the decades. So that is where we get our info. The one voice, so to speak. I can offer my insight and my opinion on things, but I'm never going to go against what the official forecast is from the National Hurricane Center. We can discuss possibilities, kind of look outside the guideposts that they set up, but this is the route. I mean, we pay for it, right? They talk about crowdfunding. There you go. Our tax dollars at work. So National Hurricane Center homepage, your source for great information. I mean, it's almost like you don't even need folks like me when you've got this. But I am here to help interpret and build on what we are seeing from the National Hurricane Center forecasters. All right? So here we go. The outlooks have begun today. Nothing in the Atlantic over the next 48 hours. That extends out to the next 7 days as well. And you can see they talk about it here. This is from Hagen. I think that's Andrew and Eric Blake. Andrew's fairly new down there, if I'm not mistaken. And Eric Blake's been there for a while. I think that's Andrew. Anyway, today, the 15th of May, marks the first day of routine issuance of the Atlantic Basin Tropical Weather Outlook in 2024. This product describes significant areas of disturbed weather and their potential for tropical cyclone formation during the next 7 days. This product is issued from May 15th through November 30th each year, and they commence at 2 a.m., 8 a.m., 2 p.m., and 8 p.m., and then after the change to standard time in November, can't. That can just wait. I like summer. I like nice long days and sunsets at 9 o'clock at night. Anyway, the issuance times will change back 1 hour. In the event that something pops up, kind of unexpected or whatever, a special tropical weather outlook will be available. And then, of course, we've got these nice graphics here. And then we use yellow and orange and red. You know, you've seen this before. 40%, 40 to 60, 60% or more for the different crayon colors, as people like to call it. And hey, I can show you. Here's one in the Pacific. In the Eastern Pacific, we do have an area that is being monitored. Low chance of development over the next 7 days, 30%. And what's neat is if you click on this, well, I thought if you clicked on it, you get to go to the satellite version of it, but apparently, oh, there it is. It's on this one. I knew it was there somewhere. So this is a static satellite shot, and let's make a color pop out there. Yellow, that works since they've outlined it in yellow. Clusters of showers and thunderstorms down here south of the Gulf of Tehuantepec. This could organize eventually. Something might try to develop and head off in this general direction. A typical climatologically favored region of the Atlantic Basin, and I say that because sometimes these things can create and be part of these big gyres, the Atlantic Basin and the Eastern Pacific. So basically, this time of year, we really watch this area through here. I'll show you in a different satellite perspective in just a moment. So this is not a surprise. It's not a harbinger of things to come above and beyond what we would expect. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though we've got this outlook, it is normal. All right? It's normal. We would expect something to get going in the mid part of May in the Eastern Pacific. Usually it takes a little longer for things to get going in the Atlantic. I needed to show you this. I forgot. So here's that satellite loop I wanted to show you. There's the disturbed area down here. A little bit of turning with this system. Got your intertropical convergence zone through here, and that's a focusing area of clouds and showers and thunderstorms, convergence going on. This is kind of a frontal boundary and a mid-latitude low-pressure area. There's another mid-latitude low-pressure area. These are non-tropical in nature, and as you can see, through the Caribbean and the tropical Atlantic, not much at all in the way of any deep showers and thunderstorms. This kind of milky color through here, that's smoke coming north out of Central America and Mexico from agricultural fires. Just something to point out. And I also believe there is some smoke starting to come in from the northwest parts of North America. That was terrible last year. Hopefully we don't have a repeat of that this year. But all in all, things are pretty quiet, with the exception of this area right through here, which the National Hurricane Center mentions in their first outlook for today, May 15th. So here's a neat product. We will refer to this fairly often in our discussions here, and we will be looking for basically this, but down here in the tropics. This is up in the subtropics. Vorticity. And we don't need to be looking for stuff that's stretched out like this. We're looking for it where it's concentrated, because that is what these tropical cyclones do. Tropical cyclone is a generic term for depressions, storms, hurricanes, all the way up to Category 5. Just like canine is dog. And then you have beagles and hound dogs and whatever, all these different breeds, right? So tropical cyclones bundle that energy. The more bundled and focused it is, the more intense they are. And we can see the beginnings of that, these markers, with products like this from the University of Wisconsin in their Vorticity product at about 5,000 feet above the ground, or what we call 850 millibars in the atmosphere. So what we see today, nothing down here south of 30 north all the way down to, what is that, around 10 north. So the tropics are nice and clear of this. But as we go forward over the next few weeks and months, of course, that area will fill in, and we will see these areas come along. We'll see it on satellite, and this is a satellite product, by the way, but we'll see it on the cloud shot, and then we'll also notice it on this product, the Vorticity product. And right now there's nothing down there, but there's the Vorticity down in the East Pac. Again, it's kind of stretched out. You have different areas where it's a little bit more concentrated, but nothing that looks like this just yet. Again, that has to be down in the tropics for it to really matter. Yes, sometimes you can get those areas farther to the north in the subtropics, but we'll worry about that later. All this other energy, again, is related to mid-latitude stuff. Lots of energy over the southeast. I think we're going to get some severe storms here in my neck of the woods. Talking about even hail, severe hail. I've had so much hail in the Carolinas this year. We'll talk about that at the end of today's update. All right? So sea surface temperatures, the departures from the norm, or, as we like to refer to it, anomalies, the departure from some kind of a base state. And we can see that here. Let's use the color black to make things pop out. This departure from the norm right through here would be our developing La Nina. Not there yet. It takes some time for that to get established, so to speak, but we're starting to see more and more of this cold anomaly show up here in the equatorial Pacific. And so that basically tells us that the El Nino is pretty much gone. All right, so the El Nino is not going to be there this year to provide all of the upward motion and the shear across the Caribbean and into the deep tropics. That's not happening this year. Instead, we're going to have the opposite of that, the La Nina, or at least cold to cool neutral through here, these Nina regions. I'm going to show you a cool map in just a second where you can see what I'm talking about. But yeah, the El Nino is not going to be there. And then, of course, as you've heard us talk about over and over again for the last few months, because it is important, this horseshoe-shaped area of anomalous warmth in the Atlantic, all the way up into the far northern reaches, down through the tropics, Caribbean, and now even the Gulf of Mexico. And that helps to focus the energy, gets the trade winds to slow down, convergence to be stronger, more moisture. It basically sets up a very favorable pattern through here, and then eventually through here for hurricanes to get going. And there could be a lot of them this year, as we have seen from the various predictions. But looking at the ENSO situation, or El Nino Southern Oscillation, right through here, we can also look at this in terms of a cross-section. And we'll do that in just a moment. I forgot, that's this one. But first, a lot of tabs here. I got to keep up with them. I did want to zoom in to this area right through here, so let's do it. And this is what I want to kind of point out. The Gulf is warmer than average pretty much everywhere now. You do have some strong southerly winds here, so you're getting some upwelling just north of the Yucatan. But elsewhere, the Gulf of Mexico way above normal in some areas, slightly to moderately above elsewhere, but the whole Gulf is now warmer than average, as is the entirety of the Caribbean Sea. And the gradient in here, just looking at the legend, pretty much the entire Caribbean is 1 degree Celsius or warmer than average. And that doesn't seem like much. I've talked about this frequently on my updates. If you warmed up your bath by 1 degree Celsius, you probably wouldn't notice it. But in the ocean, that is a lot of extra energy, upper ocean heat content, latent heat that gets trapped and stored in the ocean, the Caribbean Sea, whatever you want to call it. And that vastness of it, that it's everywhere. It's not just a little splotch here or there. It's the enormity of that warm anomaly that helps to provide more fuel for hurricanes once they get going. So that's something we're going to have to really watch. And you can even see a stronger anomaly off to the east here, heading in towards some of the islands down there of the eastern Caribbean. So a very warm setup relative to average. Meanwhile, these areas up here in the northwest Atlantic, these purples and whatnot, that's way, way, way below average. So what might be happening is that we're seeing the signs of a very strong high pressure out here, relatively speaking, not so strong that the trades would be particularly fast, but dominant, so that we're getting these anomalies from the deep Atlantic pushing into the Caribbean. At least that's my theory. There has to be a reason why we're seeing all this cold, anomalous, one part is, I guess, all these storms that are going through. But the bottom line, now let's go back to the bigger map here, drop me out for a moment. The heat relative to average is concentrated down here in the tropics, not up here in the subtropics, and certainly not way up in the North Atlantic. It's a little bit warmer up here, but this is where the strongest anomalies are. And that absolutely spells trouble down the road, because we've seen it in the past. And, it could still be that nothing happens. That's a mathematical possibility. It's a non-zero chance that no hurricanes develop. Sure. All right, be honest about it. But if we look back at being more honest, you can't plan for that. This is the fingerprint of a very busy season, that very warm, anomalous look. And we can just go back in time and see that that is generally the case. So we need to be ready for that, all right? So here's another way to look at it. This is the Reynolds method. And look at this. This is an animation. It starts back at the, I guess it goes back a few weeks. So the first frame there, let me just stop it. It's a little too fast for me. So the first frame, it's about 2 weeks ago, April 30th, and we go out to May 15th here, and just look at these positive anomalies, 1 to 2 Celsius, all through this region. And I've never seen it like that, not filled in this much. And then you've got these colder anomalies over here, or more close to normal, but definitely some cold anomalies in the northwest Atlantic. As that generally just tells me that the pipeline is going to be aimed in this general direction. Sure, some are going to turn out to sea. We're going to have so many named storms this year. Some of them will turn out to sea, but I think a vast majority are going to be able to come west long enough that we're going to have to worry about it from the eastern Caribbean, through the greater Antilles, maybe even northern areas of South America, you never know, the ABC Islands, through the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, Central America, Mexico, and of course, the lower 48 of the United States. Added to the whole thing, the subsurface in the equatorial Pacific, cold water abounds relative to average. Again, these are all anomalies. See right there, anomaly. Lots of deep cold water relative to average in the equatorial Pacific. And where is this located? We're basically taking a cut right through here. These are your Nino regions. And the one that most hurricane forecasters for seasonal stuff pay attention to is this area right through here that I'm outlining. That's the 3.4 area. And that is indeed cooling off. We can go back to the big map, and you can see we're starting to stretch that out there, and even a little bit of it showing up out here. Yes, the La Nina is coming. The strength of it, we'll have to wait and see, but just the fact that there's no El Nino is enough that we're probably going to have a hyperactive season. And this Nino area, I mean, it's really cooling off from east over here, gradually getting out to the west. By the way, this is on our interactive map, which I'll show you more of in just a little bit. Real quick, what about actual sea surface temperatures? Well, we've had a lot of rain and sort of stormy weather along the northern parts of the Gulf, even a tornado in Tallahassee recently. Yuck, that's no good. So that storminess has probably churned things up a little bit. It's very sensitive, the Gulf is. But once we switch over and we get a big high to park down here, and we have southerly flow coming up out of the Caribbean, the Gulf will warm up very, very quickly. But the actual temperature is 26 Celsius, 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That's this line right here. You know what that's called? It's called an isotherm. You know, around Louisiana, you're still warm enough, but 25, 24 Celsius south of the Florida coast there in the Panhandle. A little too chilly for me, but it's getting there. And then look at this, 31 Celsius already here south of Cuba there, just to the east of the Isle of Youth. The Cayman Islands don't show up on this particular scale, this graphic, but nice and toasty around there. And speaking of the Cayman Islands, I want to mention real quick, I had a wonderful Zoom conversation with a gentleman down there, Adam, and we talked about the upcoming hurricane season, and we are going to be taking some equipment down there, hopefully in July. Going to develop a relationship with the Cayman Islands, the government, the different people in the weather service. I'm very excited about it. Going to take a couple of GoPro systems to record any action that comes through, as well as a couple of pressure sensors. They remember Ivan all too well, in close calls ever since. Ivan was the worst in recent memory, and we want to be ready for that. So it's taken a few years, but finally was able to interact with Adam McDoom, and yes, that's his real last name. We had a great conversation. It was nice. So more about that later. Really trying to branch out as best we can with our funding and our resources, and that'll be exciting to be able to work with the folks in the Caymans. I met some of the government officials right after my talk at the National Hurricane Conference. All right? Atlantic side, still a little chilly, or darn chilly way up here in the northwest Atlantic. You guys might have to wait until after July 4th. We'll see. Going to have to get a good Bermuda high to set up and get some strong southerly winds, or at least steady southerlies, to really push that warm tropical water to the north. But just offshore, but look at that gradient, though, before I jump to just offshore. Look at that temperature gradient. The difference in temperature over distance, that is pretty remarkable. Very cold water. I mean, in reality and anomalously, right? The departure from normal up here is pretty steep. And then you've got really warm water in the Gulf Stream and elsewhere. Nothing that jumps out as being alarming one way or the other. The water temperatures will be warm enough by the time we get to August that any tropical activity that comes up here will have plenty of energy to work with. This is just more for a recreational thing. Nearshore waters getting there. They're shallower, easier to warm up. Pamlico Sound, parts of Chesapeake Bay, where they continue to work on cleaning up after the Key Bridge disaster. Yeah, all kinds of things. This matters. Rain, storms, tropical activity, that's looming. Hopefully they have a couple more months before we have to worry about anything, maybe even into September, so they can clear that out. No cruise ships coming in there that I'm aware of anytime soon, but that's a story for another day and out of my area of expertise. But that's a look at sea surface temps. Now, one of the things that we will be doing and this is a pretty long update today. Generally, they're going to hopefully be shorter. That's one of my goals this year, is to try to compress things without leaving out important information. But today, a good broad brush, especially if you're new to my videos, as to what all I like to look at. So I showed you the satellite, the animation, and I showed you the vorticity signature. We looked at the National Hurricane Center products, or at least the tropical weather outlook stuff. What about computer models? Now, there are so many of them that I could spend an entire hour or more just going through the Euro, the Canadian, the GFS, the hurricane-specific models. You know, like, that just, it's not helpful. So what I like to do is just get a broad look at things using a reliable global model, and in this case, the GFS. It's not just that it's my favorite, like, because I am married to it, so to speak. It's just an easy one to go through all the parameters on the Tropical Tidbits site, and I can explain things very well. The Euro comes out later in the day. Yes, there will be times when we will juxtapose the Euro against the GFS, but for simplicity's sake, we will look at the GFS primarily. It's just easier for me to explain stuff with it. Doesn't mean it's the best. It doesn't mean it's the worst. All the models have their flaws, they have strengths, and they have weaknesses. Now, this, when you first go to Tropical Tidbits, and I'll just kind of start over, you click on Forecast Models, this is what you would get. The GFS 6-hour average precip rate in millimeters, the mean sea level pressure, and the 1,000 to 500 millibar thickness. I'm most interested in, if I'm looking at this on just a general basis, the precip rate. And that's what your greens and then your yellows and oranges show. And you got your lows outlined there with those L's and H's for highs and all kinds of stuff. Then you can go to regions, and in this case, I want to show you the Eastern Pacific. And I want to look at the structure. Remember, we talked about this, 850 millibars, and we were looking for vorticity, where it is bundling. So let's switch this over to lower dynamics, and there it is, the 850 millibar vorticity, among other things. And it shows very nicely what we might be looking for. And as an example, right down here, let's see what we get over the next few days. And typically I'll go out to about 5 days, maybe a week. And that's about enough, because anything beyond that time, honestly, anything beyond 3 days, just too much chaos out there. So let's see what happens over the next 5 days. Well, there you go. See, something tries to develop, gets right up there near the Gulf of Tehuantepec, changes its mind, so to speak, comes back out, and now we're out beyond 5 days. So right there at hour 120, and up until then, the GFS tries to take this area, and you can see what's going on. There's your wind right through here at 5,000 feet, kind of curling up. So that helps that vorticity or energy to sort of tighten up. And those are the clues that we look for. At least that's what I look for. And the GFS tries to spin something up kind of small, maybe a tropical storm, if I had to guess. Tucks it in there near the Gulf of Tehuantepec right there. And then if we go out to about a week, it does send it out into the open Pacific. Will that happen? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. But the GFS is picking up on that. The National Hurricane Center is looking at it. It is kind of interesting because you do have this turning in here, this sort of large, almost like a gyre down here. And so it is, conducive. We'll see. Now, what about the Atlantic? Same kind of thing applies. There's your surface map, so to speak. But what about looking again for the markers of anything developing, let's say, between Africa here all the way over to the Caribbean? And as we look through, and in this case, let's just look at the next 2 weeks. No, there's nothing out there at this level of the atmosphere anyway. Now, there's a little bit of an inverted trough right here that you can see coming through at about day 8 or so. But, innocuous, nothing to worry about. I don't see anything that tries to bundle too much. Sometimes the GFS will feed back on this energy, and it's just spurious. You don't have to worry about it. That's why showing this stuff way out in time is useless in terms of anything to hang your hat on. You can look at patterns that might be changing, things like that. But as we get towards the first official day of the hurricane season, this ends on May 31st, I don't see anything over the next 2 weeks in the Atlantic Basin to worry about. And this area right through here is where we will generally be watching, because that is climatologically favored as we get through the month of May and into the first part of June. And speaking of the future and looking at patterns, my friend Dylan is over in Dallas at the Fox station there, Fox 4, one of the owner-operated stations of the Fox network, like Fox Weather, right? The mothership, so to speak, up in New York City, who I contribute content to. Well, Dylan puts out really helpful information, and if he's tweeting something, it's important. Occasional football tweets that I'm like, whatever. But everything else, he's a Saints fan. I mean, come on, he grew up down in the Big Easy area, so you can't blame him for that, right? But the tropical stuff is very helpful, and this he posted yesterday. An impressive standing wave pattern is expected to develop over Africa by early June. It won't be long until the Atlantic wakes up, if that's the case. So this Hofmüller diagram here, you might be looking at it and going, wait, what am I looking at? So here is where we're talking about. This is the geographic area right through here. There's Africa, all right? And basically, this is the present, this is the future, and this tells me, just looking at all this green means go. So right now, we're in a suppressed phase where air is generally sinking. The green is typically, this is up at 200 millibars of the atmosphere, a very favorable pattern. Well, I say very favorable. It's certainly more favorable than this. When, as we get towards the latter part of May, going into the future, into the first part of June, and then the where, you can just extrapolate right through here. That is the heart of this anomalous, and that's an anomaly. Again, the velocity potential, so much more spreading out of the air, divergence aloft. That's what this green tells us. This is sinking air all through here, the Pacific dead, the Atlantic coming to life perhaps, right as we start the hurricane season. And I want to make note that that extends all across the Atlantic basin here. All of this green extends throughout this whole region through here as we get towards the end of the month and into June, including the climatologically favored areas of the western part of the basin. So these are the clues that we look for, and I will be relying on people like Dylan, Tomer Berg. There's a lot of people to name. I got to try to remember them all. Eric Webb, Jack Sillen from time to time, Brian McNulty, you name it. These different folks will be posting stuff. And then even people that are not in meteorology, people that are not degreed meteorologists, that are avid hurricane watchers, yes, I like to try to find things that they are talking about. Because there's a lot of people, the good part of social media, people are watching and they're paying attention. And I like to cite them and make sure we stay on top of stuff. I don't know everything, but through the collective effort of folks like Dylan and elsewhere, well, it does help. All right, so let's talk about what we do and how we do it. A little housekeeping, as they say. We are mostly supported through Patreon, and that is a crowdfunding resource, if you will, that has grown a lot over the last almost 10 years, probably 10 years plus with Patreon, and we've been on Patreon since I believe it was 2016. So that's where a majority of our funding comes from. It's a great community where we all work together with the money side, because it takes money to make all this work, and equipment. People have donated equipment over the years, and we have quite the arsenal of live cameras, the GoPro cams, the weather stations, the vehicle. All of that is completely supported through our crowdfunding effort. So you can go to patreon.com/HurricaneTrack or just search HurricaneTrack, all one word, just like it says there in the Patreon app or on their website. This is what you would see if you are a member. You can join for free, by the way, and then become an investor, pledge some dollars to help us out at your, whenever you want, and then you can back off again. I like that model. I think it works well. Some people can be sustaining members. Some people, it doesn't work in their budget, and I understand that. I don't want there to be, quote, a paywall, but there must be a paywall, or we can't do this. If everything was free, it would be overwhelming, and I wouldn't be able to do any of it. I just wouldn't. We tried it years ago. Anyway, this is what you get. You have access to a lot of information that I post on Patreon first, and then through that, your membership, you have access to our insider site and all of these different tools that we have available, including the live cameras, and some of these we have at different areas of the country that are just permanent, kind of like a miniature version of EarthCam, right? Lots and lots of those, well, for us, our small little operation. And then we have our little web-based tower data, we call it, our wind towers, our mobile weather stations. And then, I think my favorite part of this, oh, not time for that yet, we'll get there. Where's my interactive map? Let me go back to this. I gotta show that. Open it in a new tab, please. There we are. The old interactive map. These are our permanent cams. Again, you can click on them. You can click on them. Come on. And they'll pop up eventually once the Nest system populates the area. I'll add lib as we wait for Nest to wake up. But we can put these cameras out. Let's try the one here on the Outer Banks because there's a bunch of them out there. There we go. Nevada's sleeping. But these are permanent. And as you know, we put them out, for hurricanes when they're coming, and they pop right up on the map, and it's just an amazing thing. All kinds of resources, the weather data. That is what the Patreon side of things helps to make happen. We take you on this journey, I like to call it, with information, and then we take you into the field like nobody else can, and we've done that going all the way back to the late 90s and all those busy hurricane seasons of the mid-2000s, and the last several years, of course, we have grown a lot. But this is one of the things that you have access to. There's lots of layers over here that our good buddy over in the UK, Will Woodgate, has put together. You can trap, hey, we even had the eclipse on there, but you can track all kinds of stuff once things are active. You can put the grid lines on if you so desire. There's a scale down there. Hey, what's the scale? All kinds of cool things. You can change the maps. You can change the base map. You want it to look kind of plain. No problemo. The beauty of interactive maps. So that's one of the things you have access to amongst all these other features from podcast episodes. Our documentaries get there first. And we have our Discord as well. Yeah, the Discord. There it is down there. I'll show you a real quick peek of that. This is what our Discord... Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I'm going to show you that in a minute. We have our Discord server with all kinds of information and chatting and all. This is it. This is what we do. This is our community. I absolutely love it, and you get access to all of that if you can become one of our supporters. All right? So we try to give you something in return, but we're also trying to build on the future. So it's different than a subscription or an app. It is a true co-op and an amazing community. So you can go over to patreon.com/HurricaneTrack and become a part of it. All right. Now, I teased this a second ago by accident. Hey, there's me. The brand new 2024 edition of the paper tracking maps are now available. The folks that sign up for our $25 level on Patreon, among other things, get one of these included every year at no additional cost. Just something to think about there. For the rest of the world, because I do have to print up like 150 of these at a time, I do make them available for sale, because why limit them to just our patrons? I want to make sure people can get one of these because they are so cool. Here's what they look like, folded up. This is how I send it to you. I tried the tube thing, Postal Service, no offense, but they screwed it up more times than not, so we just send them in a flat, nice... I got new envelopes coming this year. They're actually made out of cardboard, so they'll be a little bit stiffer, like people would send photographs in. But this is what they're going to look like. They get folded up, and when you open it, just like me sitting there on that picture, there you go. That's what it looks like. A paper tracking map. You get a Sharpie, not included. Of course not. That would be even more cost. You get one of these, and you can track on a paper map. I designed it myself way back right after I graduated from college, and it has evolved over the years, developed it in Adobe Illustrator, lots of labels on there, place names as they're called, and it's our map. This is not some stock photo, whatever, graphic from, whatever, a vector artwork out there, clip art. I drew it right after school in the late 90s. And you can get one, they're $20 and then $3 for the shipping, and I'll send it to you. And if you want more than one, you can do that. In fact, PayPal made it a lot easier this year to get everything squared away. Last year it was really hard, and then I guess they got some feedback from everybody, and they made it a lot easier. So if you want one, you click on one of these links here, whatever works for you, and I will send it to you pronto. All right? Paper tracking maps, get one. The other part of all this, YouTube. Most of you are watching us on YouTube. I've been on YouTube since 2006, and it has grown mostly in the last 10 years, strangely. And it's become a really interesting, awesome part of our ecosystem here with what we do with hurricanes and other severe weather. As you can see through here, lots of content over the years. And I invite you to subscribe and, do the notification button, all the stuff that the big YouTubers say. But, more than that, it's about the engagement. The comments, I appreciate it. I think 9.5 out of 10 are positive, educated, whatever. We don't have very much negativity. There's a few shenanigans and jackwagons here and there. You're going to get that anywhere. But most people are absolutely on top of it. They're inquisitive. They ask great questions. They tell a great story from now and time and again, right? And I love that. That is one of the big positive things about social media and what we do through YouTube. So yes, I do invite you, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, do the notification bell, because when we go live, you want to tune into what we're doing. I'm telling you, everybody says that, right? I'm sure. But what we do is different. We're going to take you on that journey, and we have actually better ways now than ever before to try to stay up as long as we can out in the field. Combination of Starlink and our terrestrial network, bundling it together, or what we call bonded coverage. We got a great team of people working on all of that. And you come with us on this journey as we set these camera systems up to see what these hurricanes do, to learn from that, to watch what happens, to satisfy the curiosity. But we also contribute to the science. The National Hurricane Center is able to watch, emergency managers are able to watch, and then when people evacuate, they can at least see what is going on, maybe close enough to their community, where they either take solace that everything is great, or they know, I'm glad I evacuated. Sometimes the views are not pleasant. Obviously, we're dealing with one of the greatest storms on Earth. But we do a majority of this through YouTube, and it's just an amazing tool. You think about all the big storm chasers out there that use it, namely Reed Timmer, and what he's done with it, now sitting on about 1 million subscribers. That's amazing. It really is. What a wonderful thing that has been gifted to people like him and some of these other chasers that have come up over the years. So yeah, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button. Make sure you know when we publish a video, or especially when we go live, because I got a feeling we're going to be live a lot this year. All right? And finally, the Hail Project. Yes, we're still doing this. Yes, this is probably my midlife crisis, so to speak. Haha. We're still working on the Hail Project, a really unique thing that I was thinking about a year ago, because it does so much damage. So I'm going to go back to my YouTube real quick. Do check out the Hail Project podcast. We have a couple of these episodes in here related to the hail. Why hail? Just a couple more seconds and I'll let you go. Hail is one of those sort of, I didn't know it was so damaging, effects of severe weather. $60 billion of insured losses last year. We are already into the multi-billions of dollars this year so far. And yeah, I want to study it, and we want to do it using camera systems like we do with those remote cams for hurricanes. I'm not going to be out in the hailstorm, but we have a special setup on our vehicle, our Toyota Tacoma, that allows us to document what hail does, and we're just getting started. When I started the remote camera project 20 years ago, we didn't come out knowing everything that we know now. I don't think it'll take 20 years to get to where I want to go with this hail stuff, but we're just getting started. We're doing these podcast episodes to introduce people to different stories about hail and what we do while we're studying it. And I just think more people need to be aware of it, because everybody is paying for these disasters, whether it's hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, wildfires, or hailstorms. Our insurance premiums are going up, up, up. And I'm going to have a special YouTube sort of commentary about this in the coming weeks. Pretty much one of those, you need to pay attention to what Mark says kind of videos, where I'm just going to talk to you, because I think we got some big problems coming related to the insurance industry, and hail is a big part of that. All right, so we're studying hail, studying hurricanes. It's almost hurricane season, and you know where to go. HurricaneTrack, that is us, across social media, even HurricaneTrack.com. Don't do a lot on the homepage with it anymore. That's more of just the brand. But you know where to find us, all right? And it's great to have you. And if you ever have any questions, we do have email available, Hurmark, HURRMARK, @gmail.com. Comment on YouTube, and if you're on our Patreon and you're on our Discord, let's talk there. I like the interaction and then the engagement. That's how we learn from each other, and we become an even tighter community. All right? So there's my update for the day. No, they won't be this long every time. Yes, I'll have another one tomorrow. They will be fairly frequent, not every day just yet, because there is still some travel to be done. But you bet, when we do have a threat out there, and there is something to talk about, even if it's just 5 minutes, I'm here, and we will have the Hurricane Outlook and discussion no matter what. All right? From all of us at HurricaneTrack, a great community we are, I am Mark Sutter. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again tomorrow.